Hi, I'm Megan and welcome to my kitchen. In today's What's for Dinner video, I'll be sharing with you what meals we had this past week. Our dinners were easy to make, budget friendly, and delicious. So if you're looking for some weeknight meal ideas for your family, just keep watching. When I was growing up, and those of you who've been with me for a while know, there's 4 of us siblings. There's the 2 of us oldest who grew up together, and then there's an age difference between my youngest 2 siblings. So my sister and I, we grew up in Girl Scouts. Our mom and dad were very active. In fact, our dad was a troop leader for a long time, and we used to go to all the Girl Scout camps, and we would make this pineapple chicken foil packet. And so today I'm going to do my version. In Girl Scouts, we kept it super simple, but again, I'm going to do my version of it. So I decided that I wanted to do a quick pineapple marinade. I will put the recipe that I use in the description box below for you. I think it was from the plain chicken. It's just Italian dressing, some pineapple juice, and honey. And all I did was mix all of that together, and then I'm going to add that to a Ziploc bag along with the chicken. I just took a couple chicken breasts and cubed them up. You can marinate this overnight, but I decided only a couple hours in advance, so I just did it for a couple hours. Now, in Girl Scouts, we grilled these over a campfire. I'm cooking these in the oven today. My oven is preheating to 375 degrees. Spraying my foil with some cooking spray. I'm going to take some cooked white rice. This is just left over. And then I decided, since I had that pineapple juice out for the marinade, just to do just a little drizzle on that on the rice rather, just to give it a little bit of moisture. And then I'm going to season the rice with just a tiny little bit of salt and pepper. Next, I'm going to add that cubed marinated chicken. And like I said, in Girl Scouts, we did not marinate it. We just seasoned it up with a little bit of salt and pepper. And then to add a little extra seasoning, I'm using some of this Badia Mojo citrus. But again, we kept it simple in Girl Scouts. And then we added pineapple. Normally we use canned pineapple, but tonight I've got some fresh pineapple on hand, so that's what I'm going to do. You want to wrap these up really tightly, and then I'm going to bake them for about 25 to 30 minutes until the chicken is at least 165 degrees internal temperature. If you grill these over a campfire or on an outdoor grill, just make sure that, again, you cook the chicken until it's at least 165 degrees. Now, I had 1 zucchini and just a handful of grape tomatoes in the fridge, so I decided to do a quick little saute. I took the zucchini and diced it up into small dices. This skillet has some olive oil on about medium heat. I'm going to add the zucchini, and I cooked it for about 5 minutes until it got tender and a little bit brown. At that point, I'm going to add in some minced garlic as well as those grape tomatoes I've got. I'm going to give that a good mix. I'm adding this garlic and herb Mrs. Dash seasoning, as well as some fresh cracked black pepper, and then just a tiny little bit of salt. I'm going to give that a stir and cook that for about another 5 minutes until the tomatoes start to burst. Here are the plates. So we've got the chicken, rice, and pineapple, and then the veggies. This was so good. The vegetables and the chicken and rice had so much flavor. Delicious. For the foil packs, like I said, with Girl Scouts, we kept it simple, but you can totally, make these your own. You could add onions, bell peppers, broccoli, zucchini, tomatoes. You can add everything to the foil packet, so it'd be like a, one dish meal. You can prep these, if you're going camping or going in your RV or something, you can prep these, and it just makes a quick and easy, yummy dinner. For dinner the next night, I really wanted chicken and dressing, but I didn't want to kind of go through all of that because it's kind of a lot. But so I just did, I'm going to call it a chicken gravy and stuffing. I didn't follow a recipe. I kind of came up with this, but I did, look, there's many recipes exactly like this. So I'm not claiming I came up with a brand new dish or anything. But in this pot here, I've just got some water, some chicken breasts. I seasoned the water and chicken with some of the chicken bouillon powder and then this Kinder's roast chicken seasoning. And I just simmered the chicken until it was falling apart tender and cooked all the way through. I removed the chicken, set it to the side, let it cool slightly, and shredded it, and then removed the broth from cooking the chicken and set that to the side. This is the same pot. I'm going to add in a can of cream of chicken with herb soup. That just happened to be what I have on hand. I'm going to add back in some of the cooking broth from the chicken, give that a really good whisk, and then I just simmered this on like medium low for maybe about 10 or 15 minutes while I was getting the rest of dinner ready. Once the gravy has simmered for a little bit, I'm going to add the shredded chicken back in, give it a stir, and then I did give this a taste. I added a little bit more of that Kinder's roast chicken seasoning, and then you can add some broth if it's a little too thick. If it has thinned out too much for you, you can add in a cornstarch slurry to thicken it back up, but I was happy with the consistency. Now, between the bouillon, the Kinder seasoning, and the cream of chicken and herb seasoning, you saw I did not add any additional salt to that gravy. Another reason is because I am using this box stuffing mix, which can be pretty salty. I'm going to cook the stuffing according to the package instructions, and then I have this box of scalloped potatoes. I'm going to cook those according to the package instructions as well. When the potatoes had about 10 minutes left on them, I added just a little bit of shredded cheddar cheese that I had that needed to be used up. I know that makes it more au gratin potatoes, but whatever. I gave it a stir and then let them cook, and then added some parsley flakes on top as a little garnish. In this little saucepan, I just have a can of peas and carrots I drained. I added a little pat of butter, some salt and pepper, and then just simmered this for about 10 minutes while dinner cooked. Here are the plates. So we laid down some of that stuffing, added the chicken gravy on top, and then we've got the peas and carrots and the scallop / au gratin potatoes, and this was a yummy, easy dinner. For dinner the next night, I did a New England boiled pork dinner. Now, I want to do a little disclaimer on this first. If you've been with me for a while, you know I don't really talk a lot about Gary's, my husband's family. There's a reason for that, but I don't feel like it's my story to share. But what I will say is just we don't have any contact with them, and it's not a good situation. And so, you know, Gary doesn't frequently ask for me to make things from his childhood, but when he does, I really try to make it and research it and then try to do my little version on it. And I wanted to say that because you'll hear me say several times, like, I didn't really know how to make it, I didn't know how to make it. And just in case anyone says, well, why didn't you just ask his family? That's kind of why. So he requested this, I don't know, a month or so ago. And as I was doing research, he just said a New England boiled dinner. And like everything I found was corned beef. And so I came back to him and was like, okay, I've been doing research. Everything's corned beef. Does that sound right? And he's like, no, we always used pork. And so I go back and again, and I'm looking, and like everything I saw said ham. And he's like, no, I'm pretty sure they just use pork. So if you're from the New England area and you see me make this and you're like, Megan, that's not how you do it, I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying this is traditional at all. This is just what, you know, Gary remembered, and then what I researched combined with my own little spin on it. So here's how I did this New England style boiled pork dinner. Again, not claiming it's authentic, but it was actually delicious. It was really good. So let me show you how I did it. All right, so here I've got my pot. I'm going to add my pork to it. This was just like a 3-pound pork roast that I cut into large chunks. I'm going to cover that with water. And if you're going to make a bigger one of these, like with a bigger amount of pork, use the bigger pot, because I had this to the tippity top and I'm lucky it didn't overflow. But yeah, could have used a bigger pan. Now for seasonings, I'm going to add in some chicken bouillon powder, a couple bay leaves, and then, like I said, a lot of the recipes that I saw that didn't call for corned beef called for a ham. And so to kind of get that same like smoked pork shoulder, I added just a couple dashes of liquid smoke. Not a lot, just a little bit. So I'm going to then add in some salt and pepper. And I also added some dried thyme. I forgot to mention that. I'm going to give that a little stir, and then I brought this up to a boil. And I half boiled, half simmered. It was somewhere in between the two, the pork for an hour. Now, when I was researching this, a lot of the recipes that I saw said to add all of the vegetables except the cabbage with the pork at the very beginning, but I thought that they would get way overcooked by that. So after the pork had boiled for 1 hour, I decided to go ahead and add the onions in because I wanted the onions to be super, super soft. So I let the pork boil by itself for an hour, added in the onions, let the onions and the pork boil for another hour, And then I'm adding in some chopped carrots and potatoes. So just to review, pork by itself for an hour, pork and onions for an hour. Then I added in the potatoes and the carrots. I boiled all of that for 30 minutes. And then I'm adding in some green cabbage. Now this was half of a head of green cabbage that I actually had in my freezer. And I just pulled it out and allowed it to thaw. I'm going to give that a stir. And then I cooked the cabbage because it was frozen and then thawed. It was already kind of softened, so I just had to boil it for like maybe 15 or 20 minutes until it was warm all the way through and tender. But you'll want to boil your cabbage for, I'd say, probably at least 30 minutes. But once the pork is super tender and all of your vegetables are cooked, it is done. All right, so here's what else I'm going to make. So I had some homemade potato rolls in my freezer. I allowed these to thaw overnight. I'm going to warm them up in the oven. I've shared how I make these before. I'll link that video in the description box below. These are so good. And then I've got a box of Velveeta shells and cheese. I'm just going to make that up according to the package instructions. And then Gary said that his family always drizzled their boiled dinner with some maple syrup. But a lot of the recipes that I saw online, a lot of people said that they would either do mustard or horseradish mustard. So I set this out just in case he wanted to use that. Here's the finished shells and cheese. And then my homemade rolls, I did brush them with some melted butter. And then we have our plates. Now, I'll be quite honest with you guys. I was kind of skeptical of this. I don't know why, but, well, I do know why. I thought by boiling everything, like, there would be no texture, there'd be no flavor. I honestly thought this was just going to be very bland, and it wasn't at all. I was very pleasantly surprised. This was really good. I did do just a tiny little drizzle of maple syrup. It wasn't enough to like make it sweet. You know, you felt like you were eating pancakes. It kind of melted due to the heat, and it just gave the tiniest little bit of sweetness. So I had a little bit of the Velveeta shells and cheese. Gary didn't. I just saved it and we ate on it for lunch the next couple days. And then we've got our rolls that we use to kind of sop the liquid up. And Gary, he actually ended up not drizzling the maple syrup over his. He just ate his with the horseradish mustard. And like I said, this was really good. Dinner the next night was also a request of Gary's. He asked for sausage, pepper, and onion sandwiches. So once again, I kind of did my own spin on this. I'll show you what I did. I first started out though by making some marinated tomatoes. I took inspiration from a recipe. I'll link that down in the description box below for you. Here's what I'm going to use. I've got some olive oil, balsamic vinegar, honey, some sea salt, a little minced garlic, some tomatoes, some fresh basil, and fresh parsley. And I just sliced the tomatoes, added them to a little dish, and then combined all the other ingredients for the marinade, added them to the tomatoes. Now, I think the recipe said to like marinate these in the refrigerator for like 2 hours and then set them out at room temperature, but I decided to make this super last minute, and so I just let these marinate out at room temperature while I did the rest of dinner, got it prepped and everything, so maybe like 45 minutes or so. And right before I was ready to serve it, I cut up some fresh mozzarella and gave it a little toss with the tomatoes and the marinade. I had a russet potato that I needed to use up, so I washed it, of course, cut it into cubes, put it in this bowl. I'm going to drizzle it with some olive oil. And then I decided to try this Tuscan Sunset seasoning. I got this from Penzeys. So I'm adding that to the potatoes along with a little bit of sea salt and then some fresh cracked black pepper. I'm also going to add in just a little bit of grated Parmesan cheese. And then I'm going to give this a good toss. Now, you can use whatever seasonings you like. You don't have to use what I'm using here. But that Penzeys seasoning, that was actually really good. We enjoyed that. So, giving that a toss, I decided to cook these in the air fryer, 400 degrees, for about 15 minutes, just until they were fork tender and golden brown. And then I did toss them once they were done with a little more grated Parmesan cheese and some fresh chopped parsley. Now for the sandwiches. Last week at Kroger, these Artisano sausage rolls were a digital deal. They were like $2.49 for the package, which is a great price for this brand. In this skillet here, I am going to add some olive oil. This is on about medium heat. Once it's hot, I'm going to add in my Italian sausage. Now, pork sausage does not agree with Gary, so I am using chicken sausage. I got these at Aldi. You can use whatever your preference is. I'm going to cook the sausages for about 5 minutes, just rotating them every couple minutes so that they get brown on all sides. Once they're brown and cooked pretty much all the way through, I'm going to remove them to a separate plate and set them to the side. Now, in this same skillet, there's good flavor in there from the chicken sausages. I'm adding in my sliced peppers and onions. I'd prepped these the night before. I've just got an onion that I slice along with a yellow bell pepper and a red bell pepper. I'm going to season up the veggies with a little salt and pepper, give that a stir, and then cover this with a lid. I cooked this for about 5 minutes. Once they started to get a little bit soft, I decided to add a little more seasoning. So I did some dried basil, dried oregano, little minced garlic, gave that a stir, covered it, and cooked it for another 10 minutes. So about 15 minutes covered until the vegetables got really tender and almost a little bit brown. Now, I decided to deglaze the pan with just a little bit of this Sauvignon Blanc. This is non-alcoholic. You can use whatever you want. I wanted to deglaze the pan to get a little, the flavor off, but I also wanted to give the sausages a little bit of moisture so that they cooked all the way through. So covered that up with a lid and cooked this for about 5 minutes until the chicken sausages were cooked all the way through. Now, those rolls, I just opened them up. I added some sliced provolone cheese. Now, I know not traditional on a sausage, peppers, and onion sandwich, but this is my version. So I added some sliced provolone, put those in the oven, and toasted them up, and then added the chicken sausages with the peppers. And then here are the plates. So we've got the sandwiches, the potatoes. We had a little ketchup to dip our potatoes in, and then the marinated tomatoes. This dinner, y'all, this was so good. The sausage and peppers and onions and cheese on those rolls were so good. The potatoes were yummy. They had good flavor. Those marinated tomatoes. I mean, how could you go wrong with tomatoes, mozzarella, balsamic, and fresh herb? I mean, this dinner was so yummy. We loved this. For dinner the next night, we just did leftovers. I didn't get a picture of it, but you've already seen it. We just had leftovers of the New England boiled pork dinner. Gary has really been wanting Taco Bell, and so for dinner the next night, he asked if we could get it, and I was like, hey, if you want to run and grab it, sure, I'll place the order. So did it through the app. Let me show you what we got. So for Gary, he did, I don't know what it's called, but it's like the $6.99 box where you can choose different things. We did a crunch wrap for him, but we subbed steak for the ground beef. There's like $1 upcharge for that. And then he did the beefy 5-layer burrito. Again, we swapped the steak for the beef. So again, like $1 upcharge for that. And then got the cheesy fiesta potatoes, and it came with a drink. And he got the dirty Baja Blast. And then for me, I know it's Taco Bell. When Taco Bell said they were coming out with chicken nuggets, I was like, what? I was like, just stick with the Americanized version of tacos and Mexican food. But I actually really like their chicken nuggets. If you haven't had them, they're real chicken. They're not like the processed mystery meat chicken. Like, it's actually real chicken. And they use crushed up tortilla chips in their coating. And they use just a tiny little bit of, there's a little kick to them. I think maybe like a little jalapeno juice or something. But I really like them. And I love the jalapeno honey mustard that they came out with the chicken nuggets. So I got that. And then for some odd reason, a Mexican pizza sounded really good to me. I feel like Taco Bell's Mexican pizzas are either hit or miss. They're either really good or they're just kind of like, wah-wah. Luckily this night, mine was actually really good. And then in the app, I had a coupon for a free item, and you can choose from several different ones. I got one of their nacho sides, and Gary and I just kind of munched on that together, and that was our dinner that night. For the last dinner in this week's video, we had a super, super late lunch. Like 3 o'clock. And so at dinner time, we weren't really hungry. Gary was working, and I wasn't really hungry. I ended up eating late that night. I was really tired, and I had a bunch of stuff I needed to do, like laundry and dishes and stuff. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go lay down and just be lazy. And then I thought, no, I really need to get that stuff done. So I turned on some 90s R&B and just cranked out what I needed to do. And while I was doing that, I just ate some chips and dip. I had some of the like little veggie Ridge Crisp chips. And then had some hell of a good dip, the French onion, and I just munched on that while I listened to my music and got my chores done. And yeah, that was dinner that night. And I don't think Gary ever ended up actually eating anything. But yeah, that was dinner that night. All right, that is it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching. Hope that you liked this video. You got some dinner ideas, things to try from it. If you did like it, hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. Hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.